I believe in a God who holds the heavens and the earth in existence. Is it serious thinkers today continue to ask us to choose between God and science? I take it this house believes in reason. That's why we're all here. And as a scientist, I believe that the universe is rationally intelligible. That is something that has struck some of the geniuses of science as demanding an explanation.
Hey guys, I've got a video here with John Lennox, a scientist who believes in God, and he's going to argue that faith and science aren't just friends. They're practically family. So let's get into it.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I believe in God. I believe in the supernatural God who created the heavens and the earth. I believe in a God who holds the heavens and the earth in existence. I believe that on the basis of rational evidence, similar to the beliefs held by the founders of this house, who gave this university the motto, Dominus Illuminatio Mea. They saw no contradiction between faith in God and the utmost excellence in rational inquiry. And if I dare mention my alma mater of Cambridge in this holy place, I would remind you that on the door of the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge are written the words, "Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them." And as we look at the rise of science in the 16th and 17th centuries, Alfred North Whitehead and many others commented that men became scientific because they expected law in nature, and they expected law in nature because they believed in a lawgiver. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not ashamed of being both a scientist and a Christian, because arguably Christianity gave me my subject. What I am amazed at is that serious thinkers today continue to ask us to choose between God and science. That's like asking people to choose between Henry Ford and engineering as an explanation of the motor car. When Newton discovered his law of gravity, he didn't say, "I've got a law, I don't need God." No, he wrote the Principia Mathematica, arguably the greatest work in the whole history of science, because he saw that God is not the same kind of explanation as a scientific explanation. God doesn't compete. Agency does not compete with mechanism and law. Why is there something rather than nothing? Alan Sandage, the brilliant cosmologist who became a Christian in his 50s, said God is the answer to that question. But people are now so desperate to show that the universe created itself from nothing, which seems to me to be an immediate oxymoron. If I say X created Y, I'm assuming the existence of X to explain the existence of Y. If I say X created X, I'm assuming the existence of X to explain the existence of X, which simply shows that nonsense remains nonsense even if high-powered scientists utter it. It reminds me a little bit of G.K. Chesterton, who said, "It is absurd to complain that it is unthinkable for an unthinkable God to make everything out of nothing, and then to pretend that it is more thinkable that nothing should turn itself into everything." The heavens declare the glory of God, says the ancient psalm. And we've unraveled a bit of that, seeing the fine-tuning of the fundamental forces of nature. It's something that's so striking to scientists that it demands explanation. And it seems to me that Arno Penzias hit it right. He is the Nobel Prize winner who discovered the microwave background on which a lot of the evidence for the Big Bang is based. He said astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing, one with the very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the right conditions required to permit life, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. But I want to come to what I think is one of the fundamental arguments for theism. I take it this house believes in reason. That's why we're all here. And as a scientist, I believe that the universe is rationally intelligible. That is something that has struck some of the geniuses of science as demanding an explanation. Einstein said the only incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it's comprehensible. And Wigner talked about the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. How is it that a mathematician thinking in her head in here can come up with equations that seem to fit the universe out there? Well, how is it indeed? Because the irony of the atheist position here is evident. My atheist friends, and I have many of them, tell me that the driving force of evolution, which eventually produced our human cognitive faculties, reason included, was not primarily concerned with truth at all, but with survival. And we all know, ladies and gentlemen, what has often happened and still happens to truth when individuals or commercial enterprises or nations feel themselves threatened and struggle for survival. A leading philosopher, Alvin Plantinga of Notre Dame, says if atheists are right that we are the product of mindless, unguided natural processes, then they have given us strong reason to doubt the reliability of human cognitive faculties, and therefore inevitably to doubt the validity of any belief that they produce, including their atheism. Their biology and their belief in naturalism would therefore appear to be at war with each other in a conflict that has nothing at all to do with God. Yet my atheist friends still insist that it is rational for them to believe that the evolution of human reason was not directed for the purpose of discovering truth. And yet it is irrational for me to believe that human reason was designed and created by God to enable us to understand and believe the truth. Curious logic. By contrast with that, biblical theism asserts that ultimate reality is personal and intelligent, and the reason science works, and this was the motivating force that drove the great pioneers of science, is that the universe out there and the human mind in here that does the science are ultimately the product of the same intelligent divine mind. Human beings are made, we are told, in God's image, and that means that science can be done. That makes infinitely more sense to me as a scientist than atheism does. Now let me come briefly to ethics. Ethical behavior, like rational behavior, of course, does not itself require religious belief. This is consistent with the fact that humans are created in God's image as rational moral persons. But just as I suggest that rationality cannot be explained without the existence of God, so I dare to suggest that the existence of morality cannot be explained either. As modern science sprang from Judeo-Christian sources, so did the concept of human equality. Listen to atheist Jürgen Habermas, arguably one of Germany's leading intellectuals. He said that universalistic egalitarianism, from which sprang the ideals of freedom and a collective life and solidarity, the individual morality of conscience, human rights and democracy, is the direct legacy of the Judaic ethic of justice and the Christian ethic of love. This legacy, substantially unchanged, has been the object of continual critical appropriation and reinterpretation. To this day, there's no alternative to it. Everything else is just idle postmodern talk. And it seems to me he's hitting the core of something important, because the value of a human being on which such egalitarianism rests is based not on what the human being can do, but what she's made of, or how she's made in God's image. I never forget speaking on one of my many visits to Russia to a colleague in the Academy of Sciences. And he said, "You know, John, we thought we could abolish God and retain a value for human beings. We found we couldn't, and we murdered millions of them." And Alexander Solzhenitsyn has said, "If I'm asked, why is it that 60 million of my fellow countrymen were sacrificed?" He said, the answer is, we have forgotten God. Science, of course, marvelous as it is limited. Even a Nobel Prize winner, by analyzing a cake, cannot tell why it was made. But Aunt Matilda, who made it, can tell you. She can reveal it to you. But if she doesn't reveal it to you, you'll never know. And that brings me to my next evidence. It's the same with the universe. We can analyze it magnificently, but ultimately, if it has a maker, and I believe it has, only he can tell us what it's all about. And he's done so in the powerful narrative of the Bible. in particular in its analysis of the problem with humanity, not simply in terms of behavioral breakdown between people, but a vertical breakdown of trust between us and the Creator.
So we just heard from John Lennox, right? He was laying down some heavy stuff about how science and faith, they're not at odds. They're like two sides of the same coin. Now, imagine standing before a silent universe, an immense void of stars, laws, and energies spinning across unimaginable darkness. And so you trust your mind to decode its secrets. You believe that the laws you uncover aren't illusions, that they're stable and real. Deep down, you sense that love matters more than indifference, that justice isn't just some social trick, and that truth, real truth, is something you can actually find. But let's pause there for a second. What's the alternative? What if your reason, your moral outrage at cruelty, your hunger for meaning, what if all of that is nothing more than an accidental spark in a cosmic void that couldn't care any less? Well, picture a universe where all those deepest human convictions, love, truth, justice, are as meaningless as a hiccup. That's absurd, right? And yet, this is the challenge atheism presents. Why does the human soul rise above blank neutrality? Why does anything morally, logically, existentially hold together? So, here's the thing. If atheism is correct, if everything boils down to impersonal brute forces, then everything we value beyond mere survival is ungrounded. Beauty, heroism, loyalty, the passion for truth, all of it would just be random chemical firings in our brain with no deeper meaning. But you see, something in us rebels against that conclusion. We know that injustice isn't just inconvenient. It violates something real, something deeper than ourselves. We sense that knowledge, true knowledge, connects us to stable patterns of order that aren't just our own projections. And love isn't just a fleeting sensation or some evolutionary trick. It points beyond itself. It hints at something eternal, something greater than our personal advantage. So here's the question. Without a mind behind reality, how could these intangible truths hold any weight at all? Why would they demand our loyalty? Okay, so there's this profound unity in existence that we can't ignore. There's a harmony between the rational structure of the universe and the rational capacity of our minds. There is a moral law pressing on our hearts that refuses to be dismissed as a mere evolutionary byproduct. And well, there's this intuition that beauty isn't just physical arrangements. It's something transcendent. It's like reality is woven in with meaning. But if we limit ourselves to matter and chaos, we can't explain these things. Rationality, morality, beauty, they all become detached and hollow. So what do we do with this? How do we face a universe that seems to whisper metaphysical secrets? Okay, so here's the thing. Rationality and moral truths are not accidents. They're clues. They're evidence that the foundation of reality is at least as personal, intelligent, and purposeful as we are, actually infinitely beyond us. And when you start to recognize the deep resonance between the structure of the world and the structure of our minds, between conscience and objective morality, you realize that the only explanation that makes sense is a transcendent source, a rational and moral foundation that underwrites reason, morality, and meaning. Without that foundation, every confidence in logic, every belief in justice or truth, it wobbles on the edge of meaninglessness. A purely materialistic worldview might give us facts, but it can't explain why those facts matter. And yet we all cling to meaning as if it's etched into the very fabric of the cosmos. And so this tension reveals that atheism is standing on thin ice. While atheism can describe the mechanics of a universe, it struggles to account for meaning, morality, and reason. It has to borrow what it can't supply, like truth, purpose, and value. It smuggles them from the very transcendence it denies. Without a rational source, reason collapses into suspicion. So, without a moral lawgiver, morality becomes arbitrary. Without a meaningful intention behind it all, meaning dissolves into subjective illusion. So, the atheistic framework starts to falter under the weight of the cathedral of human convictions, reason, morality, and significance. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. And so, if reality points towards a personal, rational, and moral source, the next question is, why is this source aligned with the God of the Bible? Many religions grasp at transcendent truths, but the biblical narrative does something unique. It unites moral order, rational intelligibility, and personal revelation into one coherent historical drama. The God of the Bible isn't abstract principle or aloof force who sets the universe in motion and then checks out. He's a God who speaks, who acts, and who reveals himself in history. And this reaches its pinnacle in the bold claim that he entered human existence in the person of Jesus Christ. But okay, let's consider the alternatives. Buddhism offers profound moral insights, but it doesn't present a creator who intentionally shaped the universe with moral purpose or seeks personal relationship with us. Then we have Hinduism. With all its rich symbolic narratives, it doesn't anchor its truths in a single coherent moral source or a God who personally engages with creation. But the biblical God, he grounds rationality and morality while also intimately engaging with his creation. He designs humans in his image, infuses life with meaning, and doesn't leave us to stumble in the dark. Through the story of Israel and the life of Jesus, he steps into the mess of human history, not just teaching or guiding, but offering redemption. And so, the resurrection of Jesus is key to this. It's not a vague myth or some abstract symbol. It's presented as a concrete historical event tied to a specific time and place. open to scrutiny. The New Testament boldly claims that if Christ didn't rise, Christianity collapses. It ties the cosmic truths of meaning and morality to historical fact, making Christianity utterly unique. It declares that reality itself, both visible and invisible, is personal. The Creator didn't just stay distant, He entered into history to redeem it. So look, other traditions offer fragments, moral teachings, spiritual insights, symbolic stories, but the Bible presents a unified whole. It satisfies the philosophical need for a first cause, the existential hunger for meaning, and the moral demand for justice. And it does so through a God with a recognizable character, a voice, and an intention. This God doesn't just transcend creation, He enters it. He weaves Himself into the very fabric of history to rescue humanity. So when the metaphysical evidence points to a personal, moral, and rational source, the biblical God emerges not as one option among many, but as the most coherent explanation. And that coherence it resonates deeply because it doesn't just satisfy intellectual questions. It reframes our entire existence. So if you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and see you in the next one.